Hello, everyone. Welcome back for the Codurance Fireside Chat 11. We had a quick break during summer. We also have a new father in our group now. So José now is part of the team. So I hope the fatherhood is treating you well.
Yeah. Doing good. Sleeping enough.
Good stuff. So as always, I'm here with Mash, José, and myself, Sandro from Codurance. And today we decided to talk about a topic that is very close to our hearts, that is about consultancy. So is consultancy an essential skill in software development? So how do we even define consultancy as a skill? Who would like to start?
Well, I can start.
Go for it.
That's the horns outside. But I would say yes to start with. Consultancy is an essential skill for any software development professional. There are a number of elements because we are working in team situations and we have many stakeholders outside the team as well. And consultancy is, the way I define consultancy, is the art of understanding a situation. There's an element of using your previous experience to then try to get to the root cause and devise a solution. And one can argue that that's exactly what we do in software development. Doesn't matter what role, whether it's a developer or a product owner or a business analyst. The understanding context, using our experiences, and analysis skills to analyze, to work together to come to a solution, and to chart a path to organizing the team so that we can build the solution or we can solve that problem. I think that element all fits into a consultancy.
I would add there, not only charting the path, but also making it happen, right? Because a lot of the time consultants have that, bad rep of, you tell us, you came here, you looked, you said you should go in this direction, and then you went away, and now we have another problem, no, that we have to deal with, no, and I feel like in order to do it, you also need to know how to go about it so that you can take people along with you, in getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much agree with that. Yeah,
I would actually talk about as the practical element of leadership. I would describe it as such. It's like you talk about leadership, but the practical element, what sits underneath, I would call that consultancy. I would go as far as that.
And change management as well, I would say. So because it's that part of leading, but also understanding how things work at a systemic, from a systemic point of view, and being able to transform, right? Which is the hardest part, I would say. This is why it's difficult, no? So I don't know. What do you think, Sandro? Yeah,
I'll try to come from a different perspective here. So in software craftsmanship, normally we talk about caring about what we do, right? But we also talk about productive partnership. That is part of the Craftsmanship Manifesto. And we talk about like satisfying our customers or delighting our customers. So for me, an element of consultancy is about that, is empathizing with the person or the company that is paying for your service. And that is unrelated to the kind of contractual model that you have. I want you to completely detach the skill, the consultancy skills from the contractual model that we have, right? So in terms of providing value to your clients or empathizing with trying to provide the best service you can for the person or company that is paying for your work, doing what is best for them, not what you want to do, is for me part of the consultancy. If you are a permanent employee, if you are a contractor, or if you work for a consultancy, that's for me is irrelevant. It's a detail or a contractual detail. But I like to think about consultancy as more like that client supplier relationship, you being the supplier, you being the professional providing a quality service.
Yeah, and that's a good, because we're talking about it as a skill. So independently of your job or your title or whatever, no, that's what we're gonna focus on, no, in this chat.
And I think it takes us nicely into understanding what are the constituent parts of the consultancy as a skill, because I have it, empathy, I know is kind of bandied about everywhere, but it is one of them, right? To be able to put yourself in the shoes of the of your client or stakeholder, whoever that may be, and understand the pains that they're going through, and then take them on that journey towards getting to the root cause of that, taking people along with you, and then to come up with the solutions and following through on those solutions, right? So empathy is at the very start of it, I guess, right? And it's not only related to understanding those problems and everything, but it's also related to making sure that you're not in any way working on the fears of the people that you are supposed to be helping, right? So you can have the best solution out there, but people are part of the whole context, right? So you have to take them along that journey, and I think that's a very important part of being a consultant.
Yeah, it's trying to be the best professional you can. And this is why I wanted to bring software craftsmanship to this discussion, because quite often people feel that they are quite different. And I know that some countries, they have different, how can I say, connotations, probably is the word. For example, when you mention consultancies or consultants in the UK, they are seen in one way. They're saying, okay, yeah, there are some people that might have some knowledge or not, but there's nothing too bad attached to them. There are some stigma that, okay, maybe they speak too much, maybe they don't know everything. But in Spain, for example, maybe Jose can talk a little bit more, normally they are associated to sometimes even lower skilled people, but they are they are mixing consultancy as a skill and consultants or consultancies in certain types of companies, and
as a business, no, or as a job, no, that people do. Yeah, no, I agree. And okay, so there are two parts here. One is the let's say branding of consultancy as a whole, and how people see consultant or doing the consultancy. So that's one area. And yes, in Spain in general, it's not very well seen. And I would say it has a reason for that. No, it's for many years, consultancy has been seen more as a body shopping kind of business, where you just how many kilos of developer do you need, no, or whatever, right? And that's something that goes against a lot of things that we value, and so this is part of why I think there's that bad rep. Then there's the other aspect around what the constituent parts that Matt was mentioning, and he mentioned empathy, right? And I will go beyond that. Like for me, there's like a core, and then around that there's a bunch of things that you need to get better at, no? But one of those things is emotional intelligence. I will go further now and say it's not just empathy. It's also about self-control. It's also about building relationships, your social skills. No, that area, no, of interacting with people, being aware of your impact in others and how you can affect them, which is, I think, key in order to navigate a lot of the situations that as consultants we have to do. So that's definitely an aspect. The other two aspects, I would say, one is learning. Yeah, like you really need to be good at learning. And improving yourself in many ways. And then there's an aspect around values, which I think changes now, obviously, from company to company, or person to person. but that definitely sets the tone for everything else, right? Like if your values are all around, maximizing profit, blah, 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 no, the type of consultancy that you're going to be doing is very different than, I really want to do a great job, or I really want to make this people successful and so on, right? And I feel those things are at the core of being a good consultant, let's say, or building on those skills, no?
It's really interesting that you talk about values, because not just about maximizing profits, because values could be related to ego as well, right? Because as we are talking about consultancy as a skill, your value could be that I am trying to be the hero, right? I'm gonna be the savior, as it were, right? And when you take consultancy from that point of view, you get very difficult results compared to what I am in a position where I have certain necessary skills to be able to help solve this problem at the systemic level, and to take the whole organization or my team with me and to lead. That's a very different kind of outlook, right? There, the outcome is what is really motivating you, right? Rather than kind of a personal ego side of things.
I think we touched upon that. I think in our second episode where we talked about career progression or something like that. The reason I'm bringing that up is because, like, for example, Jose, you mentioned we want to do a good job, right? And then Max also said, like, you want to take the clients, the company along with you and improve things and stuff. And I think that this is what happened to me as well. I didn't start working for consultancies. I never even, I didn't even understand what a consultant was or consultancy skills, right? So basically what I was trying to do always is to do a good job. But I was really coming short in doing a good job, because my focus was always like becoming the best developer that I could be, right? So, or learning a specific programming language or a specific technology or a technical practice like TDD and things like that. So for me, being the best professional that I could be meant, and you touched upon that as well, Jose, like learning certain hardcore engineering skills. But I realized that although I was acquiring those skills and I was getting better at those skills over the years, I still didn't have that sense of fulfillment, because, like, what was going wrong? I was having problems. Well, Mesh knows me for many years. For example, I was having problems with my teams, with my colleagues, because we could not reach a decision in technology or how to move forward. Or I was having a problem with a manager here or someone else there. So there were loads of things in my relationships that were impeding me to do a good job. So I was missing skills. It took me years to realize that in order to do a good job is not only my notion of good job. See what I'm saying? So it's like whoever is paying for my job, for the work that I do, how do they feel about the work I do? So they end up being the judge. Of course, you have your own values and stuff, but ultimately you are providing a service. And I realized it took me a long time that I was not providing necessarily a good service. I could potentially be considered an okay developer, but not necessarily a good service provider. So that for me was the first insights into I need to expand my skill set, and that led me to some of the things that we mentioned that are under the umbrella of consultancy skills, let's say.
Yeah. So I think this is a good time to kind of start enumerating some of those, and I can start, but I'm sure I'll miss some, so you can add some. So there are we talked about these skills at an abstract level. We talked about empathy, we talked about the values and all these things, but at a more concrete level, there are certain things that as a consultant, and I'm talking about as a skill part of your role, as for any software development professional, the first thing that you always look at is expectations, right? So You have a certain set of stakeholders, and you have your team, and how do you align expectations? That's I'm here. You were talking about delivering a service. I'm here to deliver a service, an outcome, right? What is the outcome that's expected, and what we think, myself or as a team of consultants or team of development professionals, what do we think that the outcome should be, and how do we align that? There's then the element of facilitation. So I'm just going to go through a few that I think are quite important. You need to be able to facilitate, whether it's workshops or discussions, or you need to get to the not only to the bottom of, understand the context, you need to get to the bottom of that, the problems or pain points, and you need to co-create solutions. And all those areas require facilitation, and you need to not only facilitation, you need to understand what kind of workshops that I need to do, what kind of discussions, and how do I facilitate those discussions to get to the outcome that I need at various stages of this. Then there is the element of problem solving, and imagination. In my view, imagination plays a huge part in trying to understand the problem and matching certain types of workshops, certain types of questions, discussions, to be able to elicit the information and to analyze it. And the problem solving part, of course, is to try to come up with solutions and so on. And then there is the advisory part. How do you communicate advice? How do you, whether that's written, documentation, really, as Jose was saying as well, you need to not just say, okay, do this and it'll be fine, not simplify the solution, but to actually give something that you can take forward yourself with the team, or if you're just there at an advisory position, for the team to take forward, or someone else to take that forward. And then there is the feedback aspect as well, right? How do you elicit feedback at all of these times so that your expectations are aligned and that you are moving towards the right kind of outcome? So there's a number of skills, and I'm sure I missed many here. And I'm not even talking about the practical, the specialist knowledge that you need to identify, if it's software specific, if it's domain specific, those kind of things.
I'm gonna have to add, because for me, a lot of the things that you mentioned, Mash, are essential, but some of them go a bit into the behaviors or the practices even, right? So the way that I kind of think about this is, you have things like communication, communicating change, and basically ideas and so on, right? Like managing difficult conversations, like all of these things around communicating with people. You have execution, which is all about, planning, executing, tracking, improvising, and managing expectations, that kind of area. No, you have problem solving, which you already mentioned, which is all about, this is where we want to go, and trying to make sense on, how can we start moving in that direction. Like, what is it that we need? What are the questions that we need answers to, and so on. Then there is an aspect around strategic thinking for me, which is beyond the problem that you're solving. It's like, what's the context, how things fit together, what are the dynamics within this system. It may be it's the company that you're talking about, maybe it's the team or the project or whatever scope you're sort of defining your system at. Then there is the leadership aspect. For me, that's, although it builds on top of a lot of these things, leadership is on its own a thing for me. So building people up, and coaching them, for instance, is in there, or creating an environment where people can do their best, whether it's the client, whether it's your team, etc. Like bringing out the best on the people that are working out with you. There is an aspect of relationships, and building those relationships with people. and the technical aspect, right? Like the domain expertise, because a lot of these things, the way that I think about it is, you may be, and this is what we're talking about, software professionals and not software developers, right? Like if you're a product owner or a PM or whatever, all these things will help you as well, right? There is that core aspect of what it is that you do, and some things that are more specific to the role, which is the domain expertise aspect. But all of these things that I've mentioned so far, I feel work even if you're not I would say even if you're not a software professional, right? Like you still want these things. And the last one is business acumen, right? Like having a solid understanding of business is important if you want to be a consultant, because we consult for businesses, even if they are NGOs or whatever, right? Like they are, in the end, they're trying to accomplish something. Whatever that value is, whether it's revenue or change in the world or whatever that is, you need to be very aware of how things work from a business perspective if you want to align all those forces and really have that impact. So that's more of the classification that I would use for it. By the way, it seems like I already thought about this, because about 2 years ago when I first joined, one of the first things that we did with the team, like someone posed a question: what does it mean to be a good consultant? And I thought that was a really good question, to be honest, because consultancy is something that we kind of, stumble into, like you get really good, technically, and then there's not like, you don't go to school to become a consultant, right? The same way that you go to school and become an engineer, and you can be an engineer and not a consultant, right? So there is, and going back to your point of creativity and innovation as well, right? There is this aspect of the skill of consultancy, something like, drawing from all these different aspects, putting something together, right? Understanding what the context is in order to reach that outcome, which I think is difficult, on its own. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, sorry, go on, Sandro.
No, you can go. I'll go with my small list later.
Oh, okay. Because no, I'm just like thinking about when you said there's no school for being a consultant, but school for being an engineer, and then actually that made me think. Well, actually, but you have engineering consultants, you have medical consultants, you have IT consultants, and so on. And I mean, like in each area, I think there's this technical skill, the knowledge base that you of course have, but then the skills become, I don't know whether it's the same or not. I mean, I've read 1 or 2 books on like the insights of what it means to be like a doctor, right? I read this book called This Is Going to Hurt, and it's, I think, Jose, I surely recommend it to you as well. And in there, he talks about his experiences as a junior doctor and as he's moving forward. And there is this elusive element of a medical consultant. And it's, he talks about a medical consultant, or in this case, he's in, whichever specialization is in, as someone who he calls when the shit hits the fan, right? So when he is it's beyond his knowledge. They in medicine or in hospitals, they have consultants at hand that they can call in, who are typically with they have years and years of experience. They are veterans in that area, and they'll come in and they advise and they help. They are hands-on. They come in, they're practitioners, and they have this wide experience. And in that case, in these particular situations where there are life-threatening situations, the normal procedures are no longer working, and he calls a consultant over, and the consultant then helps, both in terms of the skill that they have is almost superior, and the experience that they draw upon, so that they can think of solutions or understand the problem from a perspective that is not the norm, right? So I don't know if that same kind of thing applies to IT, but I think that consultancy, the reason it's not a kind of school of consultancy is because I think it's an element of every single skilled profession.
I think that is also more across. I agree that it goes across everything, and you are right. Like there are consultants in all kind of professions, I think, right? So I can think quite a few professions that have their own consultants, as you mentioned, Mesh. I want to bring the topic a little bit back to the actual skills. As you were saying, I was also putting up a small list together. But one thing that quite often when I speak to our people or even people outside Codurance about consultancy skills, quite often people say, oh, but I'm not experienced enough to be a consultant, because there is an association. When people talk about consultants, good consultants, we normally talk about people with many, many years in the industry with a huge amount of knowledge that can go to all these organizations and advise people and stuff. But like when we were talking about the skills, like those skills can be like people can start acquiring those skills and practice those skills from a very early age. It took me years again to realize that. I just want to go through quickly some, and some of them are not even skills. I think, Jose, you already mentioned like some of them are more behaviors. I would probably even like some of them, they are a mix of behavior, personality traits, and skills is a mix of everything in there. But for example, in the things that I was putting here, and I was imagining, for the sake of this list, someone younger, someone that is a younger software professional, being a developer or any other like a product owner or whoever, a business analyst. Some key things that I find that are essential even at the early days. So one of them, confidence. And this is not something you teach. This is part of your personality. Of course, you can build your confidence up over time. Knowledge is something that helps building up. Not everyone that is very knowledgeable is confident, but quite often having knowledge helps you to become a little bit more confident to speak. But you will need that confidence if you want to consult, if you want to get involved in certain discussions and contribute. You need to be the one that is creating an environment, and you need to have confidence in order to raise your voice, to join the conversation, even in sometimes conversations where you are not being invited, let's say. So confidence is quite a key for me, personality trait, if you like, or behavior that is important for a successful consultant. Listening is another one as well. We are sometimes quite quick in jumping the gun and start offering advice without the person on the other end asking for it, right? We just half heard what they are saying, and we are already trying to solve the problem according to our own biases and own preferences. So these practicing the active listening, reflective listening, empathetic listening, all the different types of listening, and really understand what the problem is, from what is keeping them awake at night. So it is quite important before you propose. And alongside the listening, that is, I don't know if pragmatism is the word that I'm looking for, but one also common mistake that we see is when I see people advising, and I made this mistake myself, I cannot even count how many times in early days of my career. You have how can I say, you in your head, you already formulate a solution, but you formulate a solution according to your own preferences. So you don't tailor that solution to someone. So pragmatism in this case is not the same pragmatism that you use in engineering. It's more like, can I offer an advice here or a way forward that is feasible, that people will be comfortable to go to the next step? So almost like proposing an evolution instead of a big revolution. Or even develop the how can I say, the sense, like you can sense when people are looking for a revolution, or they would be more looking for a small sequence, a small evolutionary sequence, let's say. So that is also quite important. There is something that sounds silly. Sorry, Jose, I'll get back to but some things that sounds very silly. But a positive and proactive attitude. So you cannot move things forward or achieve things if you are always dwelling in the past. You are always thinking that everything is shit, everything is wrong. So everywhere you look, you see problems. You need to be always saying, okay, I understand that things are not perfect, and that should be your default attitude. I understand that things are not ideal or not perfect and stuff, but how can I move forward? And you are always looking forward, you know? So those are small things that already shifts your state of mind and your behavior. And even without a lot of knowledge, but just behaving that way already makes you more, people are more keen to bring you into the discussions, you know? And as you are building knowledge over time, as you mentioned, Jose, business acumen, all the technical knowledge, the technical breadth and depth, then you will be complementing, you'll be providing better advice and providing more value as you build up knowledge in all the different areas. But those kind of attitudes or behaviors are, for me, quite essential. And you can practice from the first day in your career, you know.
You mentioned one thing there that I would like to go back to, which is, I think you said something like you need to sense out if people are up for revolution or an evolution. No, so I think that was kind of the wording in a sense.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna throw one of those. let's get the debate going. No,
Right.
This is too calm. Do you think then that consultancy is about people pleasing, about giving people what they?
Yes and no. It depends. The consultancy, the magical words.
Let me guess, you're a consultant.
It depends. So I think one thing is, if people are paying for your service, yes, they need to be satisfied with your service. Period. There's no other discussion about that, right? So if they're not pleased with your service, you can shout, you can do whatever. The only thing that's going to happen, they're going to say, thank you very much, I'm going to find someone else that I can work with. If you take from that perspective, yes. But if you are saying, should we just say, yes, sir, yes, madam? No. So for example, you still need to show reality, you still need to show what are the risks, you still need to show what are the pros and cons of each approach. You still need to advise. You still need to tell them what is real, you know? But there are multiple ways of doing that. And you can say that without creating conflicts, or you can say that in a very confrontational way. And this is also part of the consultancy skills.
Mm-hmm. We actually talk about that as taking people along. Sorry, Jose, it wasn't as controversial, but yes, it's about taking people along, right? You may have a message. You may think that this is what needs to be done. But first of all, are the people ready to hear it, right? And this is where you kind of have to start working on that empathy aspect as well, right? How do you prepare the message, and would this act on their fears, and what you're telling them is gonna just make them cringe away from the whole thing. So, and this, I guess you kind of mentioned pragmatism there as well, Sandro. I know it was in a slightly different thing, but this is being pragmatic. It's like, one thing is the ideal solution. The other thing is ideal solution for that context, for those people, for their level of skills, for their culture.
At that point in time.
Yeah, exactly. That culture and all those kind of things, right? And I think, so, but I've got another thing to pick on the pragmatism side of things, but let's kind of, Jose, I'll let you come back to this question around the people pleasing side of things.
Now, you mean, or? Yeah.
I thought, like, we responded. You asked a question.
No, because it doesn't seem like very controversial, but I have seen, and this is why I think consultancy may get a bad rep, right? Because this is how we think that consultancy should be done. but it's not the norm. No, if you look at books like The Secret of Consulting and whatever, right? Like
I'm sorry to say that's a horrible book. I know.
yeah, but it is what it's out
book.
there. It is what it's out there, right? Like it's not. I'm not making this stuff up, right? And people do tend to approach it in a different way. Like I will give you what you're asking for, even though I know that this is not going to be, or because this is better for me than actually solving your problem, right? And this is one of the things that a long time ago when I started getting into this stuff, it's like, where does my job kind of end, right? Like if they hire me to deliver a project or to build some software, right? Am I, should I be striving for that software to be successful? Or, should I just limit myself to, I will deliver what you ask me to, right? And there's an ethical aspect for me on this as well, right? Because one thing is they're not ready to hear what I need to tell them. I'm going to tell them in a way that they will be able to hear it. Yeah, which is, let's build the empathy. Let's build the rapport and try to get the message across, or start already hinting into why this is not going to work, so that they can come along and get to the conclusion themselves. Versus I'm not going to tell them. I know it's not going to work. I'm not going to tell them, but I'm going to do because at the end of the day, I want to get paid, right? And this is what my business is, right? And this is why I asked the question, right? Because there's a balance between having someone be happy with the service that you're providing, achieving the outcome that you want to achieve, and having them be happy, right, to some extent with what they're doing.
I think there's an element of courage in this as well, right? Because yes, you need to take people along. You need to. I think in our case, we have to provide both. You have to make people superficially happy, and you have to make people ultimately happy. And they can be two different things. And I think the superficial happiness is like, tell them what they want to hear, right? But actually taking them along that journey. And if you just tell them what they want to hear, they might be happy with you then, but the impact that you would have, it will be extremely superficial, and you will be forgotten the moment you step out of the door, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Mesh, I interrupted.
No,
you.
go for it. Go on. Go for it.
No, I think we touched upon that in one of our previous episodes as well. I don't remember which one now, but I was just thinking in a conversation I had, like, so the person was saying, well, sometimes I'm not quite sure if I should, like, me as the client, as the paying client, right? So the person was saying, like, I'm not sure how you're going to react or how to approach, and so if I try to keep things to myself until I resolve the problem, or so for example, the person was a bit not quite sure how to address the client, and I was actually in that conversation playing the role of the client. And I said, like, why would you be? That is a personality trait. So some personalities, people might be, maybe this person is this way. But let's remove that from the equation from now. What I was explaining is, like, there are many different ways of putting things across, and this is part of the skills. And in craftsmanship, you have the close collaboration, right? So, with a productive partnership, as we prefer to say in the craftsmanship world. And it's up to us, to each individual, to create that partnership. And by partnership, for example, you go to someone, to a client, or to your manager, to whoever is your stakeholders, to whoever you are trying to provide that service. Yeah. And there are many different ways of saying, look, we are trying to achieve this. Here are some problems that we faced. Knowing those people, how they're going to react with certain things. For example, some of them might panic. Because if you just stop and say, look, we are trying to do that, and by the way, that is the problem that we are facing. If you stop there, what you are doing is, that's your problem. I'll be waiting until you resolve and you come back to me. And that is one way of doing that. And this is not the most effective way. Another way is to say, look, we had this problem. We did some investigation, and we have a few alternatives. All of them have pros and cons. But we need to tell you immediately because we need a decision. So then you are being quite clear, and you are what you're trying to do is to establish a collaborative work. I'm not just saying this is now your problem, solve it, but I'm also not saying, oh, this is my problem. Like we are saying, like, we have a problem. Let's raise as soon as possible and do some minimal work to provide alternatives. And even if you don't have one, it's fine as well. Because you can also say that, you know what, we are a bit clueless. Like, we tried a few things. We were not very successful in finding an answer. And we want to bounce ideas with you just to see what we can do about it. But we are not quite sure ourselves. So see what I'm saying? So there is a way to create that collaborative environment so that you can minimize the impact. And there is one thing that I also like to add is, I think that you mentioned, Mesh, is setting expectation as well. So managing expectation becomes a continuous thing in your life as any professional providing a service, right? So it's having that constant dialogue, always transparent, where we are, what's happening. So this way, there's never big surprises, and you are establishing trust all the time.
Yeah, I think this is the other side of courage. You know, in one end, I talked about courage, and it's being able to tell the person that may be a bit difficult, and finding the right way to do it. The other aspect of courage is, and this is a weird one, that, you know, is that to kind of expose where you are, what you understand, what you don't understand, where you're not in a position to provide an answer because you don't know enough, or you don't have that level of knowledge, or so on. And it's, you have to manage that in a very delicate way, because they've hired you and they might resent you for it. They've hired you to show them the way. And if you just go there blatantly, and, you know, you can be very, very transparent and say, you know what, I don't know.
I've never dealt with this project, you know, with this problem before. This is completely new for me. Yeah, it's like
but like, just a quick intervention. Like, remember that I was coming from more like from a person in the early days of their career. I'm not talking like a very well-established consultant and stuff, because at that point that you built many years under your belt, a lot of experience and stuff, you always try to figure out a way and stuff. I'm talking about like,
yeah,
this is in the early days.
This is another aspect that for me is included within the relationship. You know, that subgroup of things, because there is this thing called the learning credibility tension. I think it's called, where you're coming in as a consultant and there are certain expectations on you, right? You need to deliver value. No, we're paying a lot of money for you, so where is my money going, right? But at the same time, you need to learn. You need to learn about their context, and maybe you need to learn about the problem itself. And maybe, you know, there's a lot of things there that you need to handle. In particular, we talked about competence, no, and productivity, right? Like, am I perceived as a competent person? No, like, okay, I haven't dealt with this, but is this guy going to be able to do the job or not, right? Productivity, like delivering stuff, even, you know, from the beginning, from the get-go, if you want to say it somehow. And then there's also the acceptance aspect, because coming as a consultant, a lot of the time there is that outsider kind of thing, right? Where sometimes it can help you, you know, the consultant halo, you know, kind of thing. Like, oh, because they said it, now we're doing it. But I'm in-house and I'm saying this. I've been saying this for years now. No? And it took these guys to, you know, like we have a saying in Spanish: "Nadie es profeta en su propia tierra." No, nobody's a prophet in its own land, no, kind of thing. So that could be a positive aspect. But then there's also lots of, you know, as an outsider, you know, should I trust you? Like, why do I need to listen to you? Or like you may not even understand. We may not even understand each other because there are certain things around the domain jargon and that kind of stuff that you may not know, right? So you're not able to reach that connection, and dealing with all of that successfully is difficult, right? You have to do all those things, and at the same time you need to be learning and getting and showing the value and showing the right. And I feel like that's something that when people think about consultancy and going back to the characteristics of people who make it, no, or people who are good at the consultancy side of things, this is an important part. How you deal with that tension is key, because a lot of people think that in order to consult, they will need to have all the answers beforehand. Yeah, that preconception of, I can't do this if I haven't done it before. But guess what? That's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of situation. A lot of the times you're going to find situations that you haven't seen before. You're going to have to deal with them anyway. And you need to do a good job as well, right? And that tension is hard to handle for some people. This is why a lot of people prefer to, let's say, go to product companies and do a more, I know the domain, I know this thing, and I'm tackling challenges, little by little, and always within the same context, so to speak, same technology, same, right? And I choose how much I bite off. Versus, you get dropped in, potentially a chaotic situation, right? Because if things are not going well, if they brought you in, it's because shit, the shit already hit the fan, right? And you have to deal with that.
But the way I see it is actually, even if you decide to go for a product company, when you first join, you're still in the same situation as you would be in a consultancy. It's just that in a consultancy, you get to do it more often, and you build better skills around how to deal with kind of this context gathering and kind of hit the ground running, because you keep on having to do it. Whereas in a product company, you kind of stress for the first month or so, and then you settle in, but you've had to do that part anyway, right? So it's just that you do it less often.
And the expectations are different because people already assume that you're still settling in, right? Like you're gonna take, I don't know, 3 to 6 months to actually be at 100% or whatever, right? That's not the case with a consultant, right? Like if you're paying top dollar, you want to get top results from the get-go.
That is consultancy as well. One thing I'd like to, because I'm aware of the time, I'd like to get back to one of the things that we wanted to cover, which is advice for people who are at the start of their journey or even in the middle and want to grow the skills around consultancy. What would be what would be a good approach?
Mash, can I just a very quick one? I can just jump into that as a continuation. I just want to share one thing that might be useful. Again, I want you just to make sure that we are not only talking about people that are already well-established consultants that will be working as a consultant. I want to bring back to the consultancy skills that can be applied in any kind of job you have, any kind of company people might be working on. So I want to tackle, like as you were saying, Jose, about conflict resolution or finding ways to move forward, right? So that is kind of related to what we were discussing a few minutes ago. There are a few tricks that you can use as well. So sometimes when we are trying to when we are stuck in a decision, like people are coming from very different perspectives and they are locking horns, right? So quite often it's because the size of the decision is too big. What it is at stake for that decision sometimes is too big, right? For example, we need to go microservices. We need to go to do this kind of approach or start investing on that kind of feature and stuff. So it is a big decision that needs to be made with a big commitment, and that's why we cannot move forward, or it's so difficult. And at some point, someone with more power will just say, you know what, enough. That is the decision. A way to try to avoid those situations is to reduce the size of the commitment. So let's say that, Mesh and I have different ideas, and one way to try to resolve that and say like, okay, you know what? Can we just have a small experiment? Can we try this bit in here for 2 weeks, for one sprint, or for a block of time, being whatever that time might be. So, and the time can be calibrated. For example, if you are talking about an architecture that's going to last, that you're trying to come up with for the next 5 years, having a 1-2 months experiment is not a big deal, right? So, or if it's a few things that you want for Christmas and we are just like 4 months away from Christmas, maybe an experiment for 1 week might not be a big deal. 2 months will be a big deal. So you can calibrate. Sometimes if you try to reduce the size of the decisions, like before we make this decision, is there anything small that we can do? Learn a bit, and then we discuss that again. Or even say, hey, Mesh, you know what? I'm happy to go your way. I have reservations about this way. We discuss the pros and cons. Let's do your way. But can we talk, as we move, can we talk about this again in 2 weeks' time and review this decision? So you see what I'm saying? So there are small tricks like that you can bring harmony in a way and bring people together. So just reducing the size of the commitment for the decisions. I just wanted to share that because I think that is quite a valuable thing that I learned over time.
I mean, we can go into some of the tactics that we sometimes use as well, but I think learning consultancy is a difficult thing because unlike software, let's say, where you can go and do a kata and like practice and have that delivered practice, a consultancy requires a context that is very difficult to reproduce outside of production. Having a client or the idea of being in that position is difficult to do. The closest that I think you could probably get to is things like cases where you kind of have a debate around you have a presented with a particular context or a consulting situation, and then from there you sort of like walk through the problem, right? Like you think about solving the problem. How would you approach it? Yeah, and then have the input of other people into that. Yeah, because you can learn from other people's experiences as well, and there's things like what we're doing right now. Yeah, this fireside chat. I love it because it's not just friends having a conversation. It's also growing together and sharing ideas and evolving those ideas, and that is part of what you can do if you want to start doing that. No, that going back to the 3 things that I mentioned before, the one is learning. You need to be really good at learning and challenging and so on. And sort of like you can work on the individual skills, communication, blah, 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 like those are kind of more manageable and you can get stuff for that. But getting to a point where you're kind of close to what you would expect when you're doing it, I think this is the closest that you can get to, like having these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, so I think that we were talking about like how do we practice those things or how do we find those scenarios? I get this question a lot, right? Mainly within Codurance, because like we are a consultants and we have people from all seniority levels, right? And some people feel that and this is with our clients as well, that they need to have a formal position, or because like, as we were saying, everything we talked about consultancy skills is not like coding skills that you do a kata and you practice a technology or a programming language, right? So, and they feel that they need to have a formal position to practice. And it took me a while to realize that this is not true. In fact, I'll tell you what, you might have far more opportunities to practice consultancy skills than technical skills. And the advice I start giving is like, think about every single encounter that you have with a human being. Maybe even with I won't stretch to animals, but with a human being. There's always a negotiation. I think, for example, I have 2 kids. I have a wife, I have 2 kids. And we need to decide loads of things. We need to decide from some subjects that are more pleasant, like where we're going to go on holidays, but we also need to decide how we're going to educate our kids. And there is a negotiation in there because we have different opinions of how to educate our kids. So if you are in a working environment, you need to negotiate everything. If you are speaking to your parents or to your partners or whoever, every single encounter, that is an element of negotiation. You need to decide where you're gonna, how you're gonna invest your money, where you're gonna go to dinner, which kind of insurance you need to have. Every one of them. That is that, okay, what is really important to me? How do I negotiate this? How do I make that person happen? Because this person is not my enemy. We are not in a fight, in a battle. This is my wife, this is my parents, this is my kids, this is my colleagues, those are my friends. So Mesh likes one type of food, I like another type of food, right? So see what I'm saying? So when you are conscious about that, and Mesh taught me one thing he probably doesn't even know, but being Latin, I'm sometimes a bit more aggressive or to the point. And Mesh said, like, in certain situations, Mesh, you gave me advice you probably don't even remember, but he said, like, before you do anything, think about what is the best outcome that you would like to have. In this situation that you described to me, if you step back, what is the best outcome? Work towards that. So, and you can apply that to any conversation. So if you think about consultancy, for me, is all about managing expectations, risk, achieving things together, deciding how to move forward. And you can practice that multiple times a day in any kind of social environment.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of it's about being deliberate. You know, a lot of the times we go through these experiences without a kind of almost like a review or a meta kind of outlook on what is happening and how we are doing this. And for sure, in life as well, you can apply a lot of these skills. As you said, you know, there's negotiation, there is kind of bringing people together, there is problem solving, all these things. But within your working environment as well, I think there are a lot of opportunities, but you have to cultivate them. So one of my favorite interview questions is that I ask people, like, you know, what do you think your role is as a part of a software development team? You know, what do you think that, you know, what are the key behaviors that you always keep an eye on and you do? And and often, I mean, I'll give a secret sauce. Often I'm looking for this systemic view, that you're not just looking at the next task, the next job, but you're looking at the whole team, the whole company, the impact, how what you're doing impacts everything else, and whether this is the right thing that you should be doing or you should be doing something else. This kind of systemic way of thinking already is one aspect of consultancy skills. But the other aspects is that this kind of thinking will land you in situations that are diverse, because it's very rarely that the only answer is like, write the next feature, write the next test. The answer normally is much more diverse and much more related to leadership, to expectation management, to people, to facilitation, to all these things. And when you see those opportunities, then the next part is being proactive about it, is to say that, you know, if I've spotted it, I'm the one that's going to deal with it. And that then allows you to put yourself into situations where you are driving impact, but at the same time you are learning. You're learning how to do a diverse range of skills, and in particular, you're learning how to deal with people and how to lead and how to facilitate and how to understand the problem in a holistic way, and all those things that we talked about bear upon that. And that's why consultancy, in my view, is an essential part of the software profession, any profession, as we talked about.
You can be a bit even more deliberate around it, because once you start looking for opportunities, as you said, Mash, you start identifying them, right? Like you can see, you know, but it's not just about doing, right? Just doing without reflection and without it, we know that's not a good way to learn. So one thing that we've used in the past is the grow model from coaching. No, what's the goal? No, what's the reality? What are the options? What is the way forward? Right. So getting yourself already in that mindset of, okay, so what is it that I'm trying to achieve, right, from developing my consultancy skills perspective. No, where am I right now? Like understanding where you are, is that kind of self-assessment and reflection. Either if you're not able to evaluate your skills yourself, you can ask other people to tell you what they think, and maybe you may not like what they say, right? But you probably thought that there was something to improve in there, even if you don't take it the way that it's given, right? So understanding where you are, and then looking for those options. Like, let's say you want to improve facilitation, right? You're not gonna go and the first time that you're going to facilitate a workshop with a client. No, it's going to be with a client. You want to practice that skill beforehand, right? So there are plenty of opportunities that you can use to do that. You can run workshops internally. You can do events for communities. You can there's plenty of things. You could play games. You can play. There's lots of opportunities to use the skill in a format that is controlled, in an environment that is controlled, but it will allow you to get better, get feedback, and so on, right? And build on top of that. And I feel like that's a good way of structuring it. No, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? Reality, what are the things that I want to, and then you go with the specific projects or the specific things that you want to do. And an important aspect of that is feedback, right? You don't want to do it and just do it and that's it, right? I did it once, check. That's it. Oh, my skill is acquired. That it's not the way. Sadly, it's not the way that it works, right? You want to get feedback from people, right? Like if you gave a talk, maybe you want to show your talk to other people, and find ways that maybe you were not thinking about that you can improve it. If you're facilitating a workshop, what did you think about this? What about the timing? What about the is there anything I can change? Is there anything that I can do different? How would you do it? Because that's another thing. There's no one way of doing things, right? Maybe this is the way that you came up with it. But there are plenty of other areas, and that already opens other areas that you can look into, right? And it will give you that structure, no?
Yeah, I just like, before we wrap up, I'd like to just to mention one thing that you touched upon, is some people, they feel that they need to have a formal position to do something. For example, you mentioned, oh, but I never had the opportunity to run a workshop with a client. Yeah, of course you won't start there. But as you said, you can create those opportunities yourself, right? And that's for example, I had quite a few discussions internally recently about informal leadership. Because people say like, oh, I would like to have an opportunity to play a leadership role, but I don't have the skills. So it's a chicken and egg. So no, it's not a chicken and egg. So you can practice leadership every single day. So you can volunteer to run a daily meeting. You can volunteer, as you were saying, Jose, you can volunteer to run your retrospective. You can take one part of the demo. Or when the team is discussing, they are dividing their work, you can volunteer to take one part of that work and say, I'm going to take this stream of work myself. I'm going to, okay, you know what, we need to analyze this. I would like to take this bit, and I can speak to the client and try to understand what they want in this area. So there are a lot of very small things that you can start doing, volunteering, creating those opportunities for yourself, so that you start owning, start leading small pieces of work, and that's a way to practice it. As you are getting better at those smaller things, it shows, because you are doing that for the whole team.
Yeah, you can get more responsibilities as well, because you've shown that you're able to do it. So therefore, people will be more willing to trust you and to give you the responsibilities as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes we feel that consultancy skills, just going back to the theme, like that, they are hard to acquire. Yes, they are. They are extremely hard to acquire. They are harder than doing a few katas or reading a technical book or playing with a cloud provider. But when you think about, if you really think about, we have so many opportunities to develop consultancy skills, but people are not even aware of those. Right? Every single day we have opportunities, plenty of them, but we need to have confidence. We need to have a certain personality that we look after those things. We seek those things, you know. So we are not waiting for someone to give us. We need to be in control. We need to drive our career and so on. So yeah. So is consultancy an essential skill in software development? That was the initial question that we started from.
I think we all agree. This is why we didn't go too much into that, but I think so. Definitely. Even if you're not working at a consultancy or as a consultant or as a freelance or whatever, these are skills that will benefit you no matter what career or place in your career you are. No, so
yeah.
Mesh, any final words?
Well, I think just like to echo. Of course, it's an essential skill, but I'd like to echo that the opportunities are always there. Be proactive in order to identify them. But I think it's a very good point that these skills you can practice every single day, even within the team context. So keep an eye and keep looking for those opportunities and keep being proactive, basically, and you'll get there.
Yeah, be deliberate about it and follow the advice that Mesh gave me. This helped me a lot, and you don't even know that, Mesh. I probably never told you that. But every time that we are, and this goes back to the difficult conversations episode that we had last, every time that you are facing a situation, try to step back and say, like, hey, what will be the best outcome for everyone involved? What can I do to enable that outcome? And try to control your emotions. It's not easy for me to say, but I'm trying, so I'm still evolving in those skills myself.
Probably easy to give advice than to follow it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So cool. Well, great to see you back, Jose, in our Fireside Chat. So hope that you get some sleep and everything is good at home. Cool.
Oh, good.
Right. So as you all know, so if you like those episodes, give us a thumbs up. Put in your comments what you want us to discuss. We normally pick up a topic just a few minutes before we start recording. So leave your suggestions with us, and I hope to see you next time. See you later.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.